Hello, this is Professor Mike Bernanke of the University of Detroit Mercy, and today's podcast is on the 30th of August 2015, and we're using the Under the Microscope, Volume 25, Issue 73. And the title of this microscope is called Hispanism and the Rest of the Story. If you see in the upper right-hand box, or left-hand box, Latino, Black, and Asian, the percentage of the population is 35%. Latino 17, Black 13, Asian 5. And if you look on the right-hand side of the microscope, what you will see are the expenditure categories. And we've got columns that attest to all of the expenditures, with the average expenditure per consuming unit, which is kind of per household, being 51,100, and then we do Latino, Black, and Asian. And these data are taken from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So, if we combine the three minorities together, what percentage of expenditures do they have? Well, they have 24.6%. And you say, wait a minute, didn't you say the population is 35%? I did. Yeah, those three minorities are 35% of the population, but they consume, in dollars and cents, less than 25% of the various categories of expenditures that you see there. First paragraph, it just states that Americans spent $6.3 trillion on goods and services in 2013 from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 34% was on housing, 17.8% on transportation, 13.1% on food. You can see what the priorities are. 11% on personal insurance and finance, and 7.2% on health care. There are other categories, but we choose not to discuss them at this particular time. Our focus here, while is minority in general, is Latino specifically, because from mid-September to mid-October, the month is called National Hispanic Heritage Month. And the table in the scope refers to the minorities and what percentage they consume of the 12 different items listed. Targeting U.S. Latinos is very rewarding. In recent years, firms have aggressively increased their Latino promotions, and guess what? As a result, they've had increased sales. Not bad. Input-output model is pretty good. There's no doubt about it. Let's discuss just some of these categories. We won't discuss housing. You can look at the housing data and read housing. We'll discuss transportation. When we take a look at transportation, transportation spending is 17.8% of all spenders. As for minorities, Hispanics lead the way with 18.4% of their spending being transportation. And by the way, Asians bring up the rear at only 15.3%. I think that's a very interesting story, because if you take a look at the table, you'll see that Asians, of course, do very well in terms of what their average expenditure is. It's the highest of all groups, over $60,167 per consumer unit, which I said, is kind of a household equation that is used by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's even higher than the all, which includes, of course, whites. So, but guess what? Asians have a heavy reliance on public transportation. That's very interesting. A much heavier reliance on public transportation than blacks, Latinos, or everybody in total. Food. Well, food's high on everybody's priority, including mine. It's the third biggest categories. Latinos spend 16.3%, blacks 14.3% of their average annual expenditures per consumer unit. Again, Asians only spend 13.5%, probably because they have so much, their average annual expenditure is so high and they don't need to spend so much. What about eating out? Well, you've heard the general statement. Well, we eat out more than we don't eat out as America. Wrong. Not so. The data are very clear, and that is almost 40% of America's, I want to make sure I have this right. Is it 40%? Overall, yeah, Americans eat out almost 40% of the time. 60% they eat at home. Asians eat out 45% of the time. Hispanics 40% of the time. And blacks only 36.3% of the time. Hispanic marketing has increased in this category of food from 2010 to 2014 by $559 million. Why? Well, the reason is because they've gotten it back. If you advertise Hispanic food, you're probably going to do very, very well, because increasingly America likes Taco Bell and the rest of the fare, as a matter of fact. And Hispanics have made a great impact in the food category, not only because of their 17% and their high percentage of eating, but because we're increasingly adopting the Hispanic diet. Look at education and reading. While these data obviously reflect income, Asians at 5.6% of the average annual expenditure for education and reading swamp all other groups, including all the category which is dominated by whites, which is only 2.5%. This percentage of 5.6% is more than double any other percentage, such as blacks and Hispanics. They only provide 1.4% or 1.3% of their average annual expenditures are devoted to education and reading. Asians have the highest annual average expenditures from the start. And so what's needed really for blacks and Hispanics, remember National Hispanic Month, mid-September to mid-October, to get them to put more of their expenditures in, their annual expenditures? Well, the answer is it's going to require some unique cultural promotion, as a matter of fact, to impact both Hispanic and blacks. To get a good job, you got to get education. Obviously needs personification and financial aid support directed at those groups. Apparel services and personal care products. Well, Asians and all the biggest category with all consumers spend but 3.2% and 3.2% respectively on apparel and services, and then on personal care products. Guess what? Hispanic and blacks spend a whopping 4.6% and 4.4% of their average annual expenditure on apparel and services. And then they spend a larger proportion also on personal care products. Why do you think that is? Well, I'll tell you why it is. Because Hispanic and blacks are trend setters. The all category and Asians bring up the rear. The all category means everybody. And Asians bring up the rear, spending only 1.2% and 1.1% of their annual average expenditure in the category of apparel and services, and much the same in case you're wanting a personal care. Interestingly enough, though, Hispanic men are avid buyers of beauty-related personal care products. Millennial U.S.-born Hispanics are very engaged in the social media regarding these products. High-tech Hispanics are more likely than non-Hispanics to try new beauty products. That's why they're fashion and fad setters. There's no doubt about it. And this opens the door, of course, for advertising to target Hispanics. There's no doubt about it. Last category is alcohol, beverage, and tobacco. And all we have to say there is, the traditional view is that minorities are the first ones to drink and drink the most, and to use tobacco and to constantly use tobacco. Well, guess what? Turns out, I'm sorry, the data do not support that. The Latinos' combined percentage of annual expenditures on these is 1.3%. Latinos combined is 1.3%. Blacks and Asians are 1.2%. You know what the all category is? 1.6%. So when you throw in the biggest marketplace right now, that is the white marketplace, it turns out that they dominate at 1.6%, not Latinos and not blacks and certainly not Asians. Anheuser-Busch recently has created a VP of Hispanic Marketing, to the point they want more of that marketplace. And yes, there's plenty of evidence that tobacco firms are targeting Latino youth because of their great population. Having said that, still they're bring up the rear of the bus of alcoholic beverage and tobacco consumption. This is Mike Bernanke, the University of Detroit Mercy. Hoping you found all these numbers in the microscope interesting. For those of you who are a member of America's Marketing High School, of course, questions will be attached. See you next podcast, sport fans.